Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Daisy, and I serve as Initiate Justice's statewide advocacy manager. And so tonight, we're actually glad to present to you all a skills building webinar on written communication with the focus on composing emails and social media posts. This is actually a webinar that is being brought to you all in partnership with students that are interning with us for the spring 2022 quarter out of UCLA courses. Some students are from Dr. Shalom Staub's Community Engagement and Social Change Engaging Los Angeles course, and another set of students are coming to us from Professor Robin Kello's Literatures and Practices of Decarceration course. So these students worked on putting out the webinars that we are presenting to you all in the month of May. And so this will be the last webinar that we're presenting before we wrap up for the spring quarter. But just wanted to give that introduction as far as like why we do these, who they are being presented by. And so there is closed captioning that is available for folks joining us. In your settings, you can turn on your subtitles. And also, as always, utilize the chat box for any questions, comments. We will have space for questions throughout the presentation and also at the end. So feel free to use that chat box if anything comes up, and we'll make sure we'll address that during the presentation. But with that being said, I am going to turn it over to our students who are going to present tonight's topic on written communication. And again, thank you all for being here, and I'll turn it over to the students for introductions.
Hi, everyone. So thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend our webinar on written communication this evening. Knowing how to navigate the increasingly digitized world we live in today is becoming crucial to our professional and personal lives. And so we found it fitting to discuss how to best utilize these spaces in pursuit of your own personal and professional goals. So for the next hour, we will be focusing on written communication and specifically how to compose professional emails and social media posts. We will be going over the basic functions of email and social media, but we'll also be focusing on how these tools intersect with Initiate Justice and all of the work that you guys do. So before we begin, our group would really like to thank Daisy and Antoinette for all the help and guidance you guys have shown us. You guys are really the best, and it's been such a pleasure working with you. So right now, here's a little rundown of the agenda for today. We'll briefly introduce ourselves in the next slide. And yeah, really excited. So starting with introductions, my name is Jasmine Amiri, and I'm a second-year political science and communication major at UCLA. I'm actually a part of Professor Kello's class on literature and decarceration, which has been such an awesome experience. Yeah, I'm originally from Orange County, California, and a fun fact about myself is that I play on the club beach volleyball team at UCLA, which has been really awesome. And I'm really excited about tonight because I've personally found that as I enter the pre-professional world, sending and replying to emails has not been my strong suit, and it's been something that I've personally struggled with. So creating this webinar has actually really helped me with my email knowledge. So yeah, just gonna pass it on to Cameron.
Hey guys, I'm Cameron and I'm a first year and I'm from Inglewood, California. So it's like 20-30 minutes away from campus. And a fun fact about me is that I enjoy baking, but I don't like most sweets. So like chocolate, I don't eat chocolate, don't eat peanut butter. I only eat buttercream icing. So it's like I bake the stuff, but I don't eat the stuff, which is pretty interesting. And I'm planning to major in education and African American studies, but I'm currently a business econ major.
Hi guys, I'm Olivia and I'm a second year biology major here at UCLA. I'm originally from Walnut Creek, California, which is located in the East Bay. And a fun fact about me is I love hiking. I love going out on solo hikes because I have a ton of open space from where I'm from. And I'm also very excited to go over the essential components of an email and social media posts, as they're things I've been learning as I start applying to different opportunities and get myself more involved in my community on campus and in the LA area. So I'm very excited as well. So starting with the elements of the email, we can start a discussion, and we plan to give basics of proper structure and format, go over word choice and tone, and cover some appropriate times to send an email, whether it be prior to an event or as a follow-up. Getting a sense of comfortability in email etiquette and writing is a key element for professional success. Not only are emails an essential networking tool, but they're also crucial in the activist space, knowing how to inquire about various volunteer opportunities, following up after a meeting or an interview, and sending emails to your legislator are all ways you can utilize emails to engage in the abolition work with Initiate Justice.
So starting with the basic structure of an email, there's several pieces of information to include in all emails. And this is pretty basic, but we hope we can give like a comprehensive overview. So the recipient line is where you enter the recipient's email address, and you can also include more than one person's email. The carbon copy, or CC, allows you to send a copy of your email to individuals, and it's used to keep people in the loop or to share the same email with them in a transparent way. Compared to a CC, the blind carbon copy, or BCC, conceals the recipient addresses to other recipients of the email. And I actually have personally been fooled by what BCC has meant in the past. Just a little personal anecdote. Not knowing BCC has in fact hurt my professional career. I accidentally sent an email to 500 people without using the BCC, and do not do that. Make sure to use BCC if you are emailing a large group of people that and you need to conceal their email addresses. It's definitely a privacy concern. So in order to BCC an email, you can put your email in the recipient line and then press BCC and add all the other emails of the recipients, and that will conceal their addresses from the other recipients of the email. And then other than that, there's the message box where you include your greeting statement, your message, and then your sign off or your signature. And then perhaps one of the most important parts of the email, in my opinion, is the subject line, because that's what pops up in the recipient's inbox. And actually, subject lines that are short and concise with less than 50 characters have 12% higher open rates than emails with long subject lines. So it's really important to think about what you're talking about in your email and to summarize it in only a few words. And then we can move on to the next slide, Daisy.
Okay, beginning an email depends on who you're addressing. After the subject line and recipients are figured out, you can move on to the bulk of the email. Starting with openings. Most common openings start off with dear, so dear, and then followed by their name. It is important, however, to decide how formal or casual your email is going to be. Dear is formal, while hello and hi are very casual and friendly and kind of just, a little bit more personal, kind of something you would send to a friend. To be safe, dear may always be used unless writing to a nameless location or a friend. Then hello or hi followed potentially by a name could be used. I've emailed a general organization in the past where I just used hello because no names were directly tied to this email, and that's also worked fine. It just also depends on how you feel and just honestly who your audience is. As far as closings go, closings should use the same consideration of formality. Best is the dear equivalent for closings, and that is mostly typically used. Sincerely and thank you are other common closings that keep a formal tone. Sincerely can also be used in a formal business letter, and thank you perhaps in a follow-up email, and something like all the best is a more friendlier way of closing the email as well. And we can move on to the next slide.
So here we have a few common email phrases. When writing the body of an of an email, it might be handy to have a few of these in your back pocket. Using certain phrases simply makes your email more digestible, more welcoming, and in a professional sense, more appropriate. So here we have a few listed you can look over. I always, after my header, start with something friendly like "I hope all is well" or "I hope you had a good weekend." It's best to send an email sooner than later, but weekends are often the days people aren't checking their emails, which is why it's nice to check in on their weekend. And it's often appropriate to wait until Mondays and then open in a friendly way, wishing the recipient had a good weekend. And then when finishing up an email, I usually thank the recipient for their time and show my appreciation for them receiving and reading over my message, because they are going out of their way to look over whatever I have to say. And then also mentioning my looking forward to hearing back from them, because that can entice or encourage someone to give a response. You could go on to the next slide. And then for word choice and formalities, looking at the overall tone of the email, it's most important to determine who's receiving the email to decide your degree of formality. Once figuring that out, it's equally important to stay consistent throughout the entire email, just to avoid sounding scattered or careless. It's usually not necessary to be so formal that one can't digest what's being said. But if, for example, you're writing to a legislator or an employer, you should use the correct terminology, and a more formal tone should in fact be used. And then once you've written your email and have gotten all the elements in, you should always proofread, because it's very easy to have little slip ups and technical errors in your email.
Word choice. It is important to recognize your audience when determining your word choice. Most emails in a professional setting will use a formal tone, as seen on the right of our screen. Our examples first, so "thanks for your help" versus "I am writing to thank you for all your help." It just gives a different, more professional tone to your email. The manager said versus "as per / according to the manager." It's just all about things that read different but mean the same things. It's just I guess just all about tone, and just adding a certain level of politeness, because remember, in emails your tone of voice doesn't always come across, so you might sound like you're saying one thing and it might come off a little different. So in emails you have to always make sure to go out of your way to make sure your politeness or your tone of voice truly comes off, because you can't really get that as much in an email.
Yeah, so while most of our presentation so far is focused on common ways to compose an email, I think it's really important to remember that personalizing your emails is really a powerful way to engage with whoever you're sending it to. So for example, if you're writing to a potential hiring manager, while it's super effective to use the terminology that we've suggested, also using like personal anecdotes and details about who you are and introducing yourself, you will never go wrong by doing so. And another way to like personalize your email, if you're writing to a colleague, you can start the email with like a sincere compliment. For example, if they've accomplished anything recently, you can congratulate them. Yeah, just really thinking about who you're sending the email to and personalize it in that way, I think is really effective. And the recipient will definitely engage with that. I think Olivia has a little anecdote about personalizing emails.
Yeah, sure. So I've been applying to research positions for the upcoming fall, and it's a new type of email that I've been working on, and that I haven't sent before. And so I've learned in a cover letter, it's just best to include reasoning as to why you are invested and interested in joining the team or the lab. And so that personality just shows eagerness. It can be for an employer too. I mean, it doesn't have to be, this is just for my case, but it shows that you've done a bit of research rather than blindly jumping into something. So it's always helpful.
Okay, when to write a professional email. With this slide, we touch on the appropriate times to send a professional email. Using your best judgment, you can decide whether or not it's necessary to send an email, a follow-up, or a thank you. For example, with contacting local legislators, following up after meeting or interview, general questions, or inquiring about a job or volunteer opportunities, those are all perfect circumstances to where a professional email would probably be necessary, or probably be your best bet to effectively get your message across to whoever's on the other side of your email. And that, next slide then. This example is for oh, I'm sorry, it's kind of blurred. My Wi-Fi is a little bit. Okay, here we go. This is an example post interview of an email that's correctly sent to a hiring manager after an interview. The subject is "Thank you for your time." It's brief, it's quick to the point. It lets the recipient, the hiring manager on the other end, know that this email is going to be about the interview that was just completed. Dear hiring manager, as an opening, lets them know, hey, it's addressing who they're emailing. Message says, "Thank you for your taking the time to speak with me about the coordinator position. It was great to meet with you and learn more about the role." Very polite, gives a very positive tone to the email, and it's very professional. I look forward to hearing from you. Best, signed their name, email, and a way of contacting them. Always with any email, leave a different, if you can send, leave a different point of contact. It's always best to have 2 ways of contact just in case, emails get lost. And yeah, this is just a great example of an email that was sent after an interview and that you could probably use the template for in the future. Next example is email inquiring about volunteering. Like we showed before, it addresses who we're emailing. It has a short but pretty good subject. Sorry, I'm still a little nervous, but letting your recipient know what the email is going to be about, which is inquiring about volunteer work, leaves the email, phone number, signs their name, and that's pretty much it. Follows the basics, follows the rules. And yeah, it's a pretty good example of how to send a professional email. And next slide.
I think we just want to take this time. I know we've kind of just been talking at you guys. If anyone has any questions before we move on.
You can also at any point drop questions in the chat too if something comes up. But we can move on to the activity now.
Yeah, so we're going to send out a poll in the chat about, in an email to a legislator, would you use "Dear hello, thanks or best"? And then in an email to a potential employer, you can vote on whether to use "Thank you for your time" or "Thanks," or "I saw this job opportunity," or "I am," with an introduction, and then explain why you're interested in that position.
So right now we have a poll that should be coming up on folks' screen. It's going to be asking you to answer 2 questions. The first is, in an email to a legislator, would you use 1, "Dear" or "Hello," or the second option, which is "Thanks" or "Best"? And that's the first question. The second question is asking, in an email to a potential employer, would you use A, "Thank you for your time," or "Thanks"? Or the second option, which is, "I saw this job opportunity," or "I am blank, interested in terms of your professional standing, interested in this position. So if y'all could take a moment to answer those 2 questions, we'll leave the poll on for a couple more seconds just to give folks enough time to read those questions and determine which answer is appropriate. And we'll go over the results in a moment.
And I think, Daisy, this is our bad. I think we might have formatted the poll wrong. Like, I don't think you can vote on dear or hello. I think you can vote on 1 or 2, if that makes sense.
Maybe we can just take it to the take it to the chat and go
Yeah.
and go one at a time, because I think that yeah, they're not separated.
So did you all want me to close the poll now so that way you can use the chat for that?
Yeah, you can close it.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll close the poll, folks, and the presenters are going to utilize the chat for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, in an email to a legislator, I think it's unanimous that you would use dear rather than hello. I mean, dear is just a little bit more formal than hello. And dear, I would argue, is very universal. If you don't know what to use, going with dear is always like a good option. This is just an aside, but another option for addressing someone in an email would be to say like good afternoon or good evening, depending on what time it is. I think that's another cordial way to address someone. And then in closing, thanks or best. I would argue that best would be the better option in this situation. Usually you do use best in situations where you kind of know the person. So you could also use sincerely in this case. Sincerely is another like very universal close. And then in an email to a potential employer, using thank you for your time. Another great like phrase that I've picked up on is I look forward to hearing from you. That's kind of another like universal phrase that you can use when you're in contact with someone that's like your superior. And then I saw this job opportunity, or I am, and then giving an introduction, interested in this position. I think emailing a potential employer, you want to be more descriptive. You want to explain why you're reaching out. Yeah, Olivia and Cameron, do you guys have anything to add?
I think that was a good recap. I think,
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we can move on to our second like little interactive activity then. We're going to be talking about subject lines. So yeah, like I said before, subject lines are really important. You don't want to be including the entirety of your message in the subject line. But you want to be capturing the message of the email. So we have a couple scenarios listed here, and then we can kind of, if you guys want, in the chat, you can suggest what you think an appropriate subject line would be. So the first one is, if you have a general interest in a volunteer opportunity after hearing about it from a friend. Does anyone have like any suggestions about what a potential subject line could be for this scenario?
So there's 3 scenarios that are being shown on the screen. So for this activity, it's practicing making and creating subject lines. So the first scenario is general interest in a volunteer opportunity after hearing about it from a friend. So what would you write as a subject line for an email that's going to be addressing that? The second option is showing interest in a job listing. What would you use as a subject line to grab the attention of the place that you are looking to seek employment from? And then the third option is following up after an Initiate Justice meeting, perhaps with questions or to thank any speakers. So what would you utilize again as a subject line to reference that email? And just something to note also on subject lines in terms of my professional capacity with IJ, subject lines are definitely important in that we have a lot of emails that come in from different groups or people that are, just different areas of interest that they're interested in our work. And really the subject line for me is what I look for when I know it's like, is this important for me to open right now? Is this going to need my attention right now, or can I wait? So also thinking of like the urgency of your email. Some of you have been in either committees or spaces where we'll put a call to action and we'll make that subject line with an asterisk in bold words, urgent or action alert, to grab your attention, to be like, oh my goodness, like they need me to do something. I'm going to open this email up and see what this is about. And usually in those emails, for example, the calls to action, we'll put action alert, and then what is that action that we're asking you to do? Call your legislator. So then you'll know that when you open up that email, it's going to be asking you to do a call to action in regards to calling your legislator. So same here, we're asking you all to take a moment to think through these three scenarios and what would be a subject line that you would utilize when addressing an email that's either showing interest in a job, interest in a volunteer opportunity, or following up with Initiate Justice on a meeting with any questions or remarks that you have from an event. So just wanted to reiterate that for folks, that is what we're asking folks to write in the chat. And Andrea, I see listed regarding a voluntary opportunity as one response. Cameron also listed in the chat, potential volunteer to work. But just wanted to drop those responses in the open area based off what folks had thought through on those scenarios.
Yeah, I really like all the suggestions in the chat. Is it Vita? Is that how you pronounce your name? I really liked your suggestion about being specific. I think that definitely, like, if I'm a hiring manager, I'm gonna want to like be able to sort through my emails. And if I'm looking for someone to fill that specific position, definitely like being specific is the best way to go.
And just for folks that haven't been able to access the chat, Vita shared in the chat, I would include the position name in the subject line instead of volunteer opportunity so that it can stand out. So for example, inside organizer, volunteer, I normally wouldn't include the urgent feature in the email unless it's truly urgent. So thank you for that response, Vita. And yes, to me, for example, if that email came to me, I would know inside organizing volunteer inquiry, I'm going to send this to Lee, because Lee is the one that handles that department. So that makes it easier for me to redirect that email to the appropriate department. So thank you for sharing that, Vita. Appreciate that response.
Yeah, thank you. I think just the main idea is that details can be necessary when creating your subject line. Okay, we could move on, I think, from this activity. Okay, so now we can switch gears to focus on social media. It's one of the most powerful communicative tools that we have today. Knowing how to navigate it, it allows us to network and engage in activism, and then reclaim your public narrative as well. As a disclaimer, you don't need to be active on every social media platform. I'm definitely not, but knowing how to navigate the most popular sites can often be very effective to engage in the abolition conversation and help propel Initiate Justice and any other organization's mission. So the 3 platforms we want to focus on today are Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, as we find them most useful and often less casual than others. So to give a basic rundown, Twitter shares instant updates. It's a networking tool for both business and personal use that allows users to post tweets of 140 character maximum, which is what makes this platform unique compared to others. It allows for networking, building traffic, promotion of professional pursuits, and simple socialization. Instagram differs in that it's more of a visual platform. The purpose of this app is to share your photos and videos to whoever you allow to follow you, whether you're private or a public account. You have complete creative control over what you post. Posting on your main feed keeps the content up until you delete it yourself, while posting on your story, another element of Instagram and a newer feature, stays up for only 24 hours before disappearing. Only if you make that image or video a highlight will it stay on your profile page, visible to anyone following you. And then Facebook is a combination of text and visuals, allowing for connection and personal sharing. There are messaging features in this app, as well as something called the Facebook Marketplace, where you can sell and buy items from people. And I've actually used the Facebook Marketplace for a lot of my apartment furniture. And I'll be using it again next year for my next apartment. But yeah, those are the 3 we'll be focusing on.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go over Twitter, and it's actually kind of funny. I don't have a Twitter personally, but ever since we've started this project, I've definitely been trying to navigate the app, and I've been looking over Initiate Justice's Twitter, and that you guys have a great Twitter account from what I can tell. From what I've learned from some of you guys, the organizers, is that Twitter is a great tool to, get in contact with your local legislators and representatives. So knowing how to navigate Twitter is especially important in the activist space. Twitter is primarily text-based, as Olivia said before. There's, I believe, 140 character minimum for every tweet. So tweets are pretty short compared to an Instagram or a Facebook post. And then on Twitter, you can actually retweet and and then reply to posts. And these can show up on your account page, which is kind of different from Instagram and Facebook. And it's also an aspect that always kind of confused me personally. So yeah, definitely knowing what retweeting and replying means will help you navigate the app. Yeah, I'm still learning Twitter. I don't know why it's so confusing sometimes, but I hope this presentation will kind of sort it out for you guys. So we can go to the next slide. So how to post a tweet. You can actually include up to 4 images, although it is primarily text-based. And the little schedule icon, you can schedule a tweet, which is important in what I'm going to be talking about next. But yeah, Twitter, you're going to want to utilize hashtags if you're trying to get in contact and in touch with a legislator. Using hashtags of a certain bill is going to be really important in flooding their feed and getting their attention. You can also tag them using the @ symbol, and that's also definitely going to spark their attention. But yeah, in general, you're going to want to keep tweets short and simple, straight to the point. And there's not even enough room to really be super detailed. Yeah, I see Daisy in the chat. Yes, include hashtags. Twitter is a place where you're going to want to hashtag, you guys. So we can move on to the next slide. This is where things get complicated for me. I don't know why. Replying and retweeting, it sounds super simple, but I had to figure it out. When you want to reply to someone, that means you're replying directly to their post, compared to a retweet, which is more like a broadcast, like you're forwarding their post to other people. So both a reply and retweet will actually appear like on your profile under tweets and replies, which is another like thing that sets Twitter apart from Instagram and Facebook. And this is going to be important. I guess we can move to the next slide, Daisy. Or I guess here on the last slide below. Sorry, can you go back? If you guys can see, in order to reply, you're going to use, if you want to, let's say like reply to Initiate Justice's post, you can go directly to their post and then click on the little reply link to the far left or the retweet button. And the retweet one looks like a little box, or you can just like the post, which is another way to like support someone's post without directly commenting on it. So yeah, Daisy made me aware that in your guys' space, Twitter storms and Twitter chats are a great way to call attention to certain pieces of legislation and get involved using the power of social media, which I think is awesome. So a Twitter storm is basically like a spike in activity surrounding a certain topic on Twitter. Usually they're started by a single account who sends their followers a message related to, in this case, like a piece of legislation or something newsworthy. And Twitter storms and Twitter chats are definitely an effective way to attract attention to legislators and local representatives. And the more people that know how to participate, the more effective this will actually be in getting their attention. So using what we just talked about with replying and retweeting, you can use the reply function to basically respond to someone's question. So how like a Twitter chat would work is that in this case, the example is that Restore Cal would tweet out a question, and then you would go to their post and click reply. And then from the resources that IJ gives you, you can actually just copy and paste a tweet over in your reply and attach a graphic and post it. And in that way, you will be participating in the Twitter movement. I would like to think of them as like online protests, online movements. I think it's a great idea. And I will definitely, now that I have a Twitter account, Daisy, be participating in the next one. But yeah, so if you want to schedule a Twitter post, you can also do so in order to participate in like the Twitter storm. So using the little calendar icon, when you go to like reply or retweet a post, you can also schedule your tweet, even if you can't be on your phone at like the time of the activity. So yeah, I think that's a great way that IJ and social media intersect, and definitely a great way for everyone to be able to get involved. So now you can move on. Next slide. Thanks, Daisy.
All right, so moving on to Instagram, we will focus on how to caption, post, and just orient yourself on the app. So this slide is Initiate Justice's Instagram. It's clearly set up to be a professional account, and they have the logo in the profile. The bio has details on like the so what of the organization with active links to meetings, a calendar, podcast, etc., and the feed of the posts. The feed that is consistent of posts remains professional as well. So this differs, and obviously my Instagram or someone else's that's just more friend oriented versus a more professional and call to action Instagram. And so an account could be done completely different in a more personal sense. So to create a post, after you set up your account, you just click the plus button in the upper right of the screen, and that will give you a small drop down where you'll see the options for a post, a story, a reel, or a live. And then post and story are the most common features of Instagram and the most typically used. So you select post and then your camera roll will become visible. You can select your photos to include in the post, and you can select up to 10 now. And you can reorder and you can figure out what you want to prioritize and put as your cover photo. And then you click the next button in the upper right corner, and you're taken to something that looks like this image on the screen. And this is where you write your caption. You can make it as descriptive as you want, but an effective caption will hook your audience and usually relate to the image or images you're posting and remain authentic. Generic captions don't perform as well as your followers are following the account to see you or the organization, not some searched up generic caption. And then you finally can hit your share button when your order and when your photos are ready and your caption's ready, and you've tagged everyone and covered everything you want to. Okay, and then reposting. So Instagram has a feature where you can repost images that other users have posted themselves. So you start by clicking the little mail icon that's pointed out in the leftmost image towards the bottom. And then you click on the first line of text that reads add post to your story. This takes you to the second image on this slide. From here, you can resize the image just with your finger, by shrinking or making it bigger. And you can also click that double A button and add a caption or tag anyone, or add an active link. And then you click your story icon and it will post to your story, not your feed. So your story is what will run for 24 hours and then disappear, versus your feed, which indefinitely stays. And then in this example, Initiate Justice has posted on their own feed that there's a monthly meeting, and it's just a reminder for it. And then they get the date, location, and time. And then the user sees this in their feed and then can add it to their own story to promote attendance to the meeting. And then adding a link, you can add a link similarly to a caption on a story. You just click the sticker icon instead of the double A, that it's right next to it. And you press on the link icon that's pointed out also, and that allows you to connect an external link to a post that users can access. So for example, like the Zoom meeting link could potentially be added to your repost of the story to make it even easier for someone that's following you to attend the meeting or to learn about it.
Okay, this is I'm gonna be talking about Facebook. Facebook Now Meta is an effective way to connect with others. With Facebook, you can share pictures, videos, messages, articles, music. You can share more with Facebook than with Instagram and Twitter. You can also join Facebook groups online, and like Olivia mentioned, you can also utilize Facebook Marketplace, which is I've also used Facebook Marketplace to buy quite a few things in there. It's pretty great. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, how to post in your feed. With posting on your feed, the first step is to think about what you'd want it all to include in your post. With Facebook, you have the option to include photos, videos, a feeling, to tag a person. And with Facebook, it's a little bit different. With tagging a person on Facebook, that means that once you tag them, your post will also appear in their timeline, which is different than Instagram, which is just their at just being mentioned. And that's pretty interesting. You can also check in at a location and include a background color for your post if you want to include only text in your post. In this sample post, a feeling of being empowered was selected at the bottom. A feeling of empowered was selected while tagging Initiate Justice's location. That was all happened using the icons pictured below. With each element, they also wanted to add a caption. So they wrote the caption, stop by to brainstorm for the next month's meeting. Hope to see you guys there. Just to promote just to give their Facebook timeline a little update about what they're doing at the office. And with that post, you would just press post in the top right corner and your post will be submitted to your timeline. And yeah, next slide. Okay, for our final activity, we're going to be going into breakout rooms and doing a social media activity. And with this activity, we're actually going to be creating our own post. So in our breakout room, we're going to be screenshotting the webinar, basically. And if you have any type of social media, we would love for you to tag Initiate Justice with your screenshot, and then we're gonna let you know when we see your post. And that's the activity in our breakout room.
And the group members are all going to be in a room assigned with each of you, so that way, in case there are any questions, you are able to ask them in that space. But just so that way folks know, there will be someone in the room to help answer any questions. And again, this is just to kind of get a sense of, if that's something that you've ever done before. If not, then we encourage you to learn with us tonight as we do this activity. Yes, I just wanted to make that announcement. So we'll be in there just for a few minutes and then we'll bring everybody back. But you will have one of the group members in the room with you to answer any questions that you may have. And I'll open up the rooms now, and we'll see you all back in a few minutes. I think we have everybody back. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you all had engaging conversations in your rooms. I'm going to turn it over to the students who are going to be closing us out for today's segment and also giving a space for any questions, comments, feedback from today's session. So I'll turn it over to the students.
Yeah, just thank you guys so much for being here and listening to each of us. We really appreciate it. And I know we had a lot of fun being creative, like with this webinar, and it was definitely a learning experience for us as well. But yeah, I was just in a breakout room with not student Olivia, organizer Olivia. And she had a really great comment about social media. She called it like a necessary evil. And I definitely agree. I mean, social media, there's a lot of negativity that can go on, and you can't lose sight of how important it is to be safe on social media as well, especially in like the abolition space. So keeping that in mind, but also recognizing that it is like a very powerful tool and probably like the most powerful like communicative tool today. So yeah, definitely like knowing just the basics, I think is a really powerful way to, have a voice. So yeah, I just wanted to close with that. Cameron and Olivia, I can kind of pass it off to you guys.
Yeah, well, a huge thank you to everyone. And then my group went over just the effectiveness of individual messaging versus posting on your story, and that often like reaching out to individuals can see more engagement if you invite to a meeting or something. And then also just the more accessible you make a link or an opportunity on your post, the more likely someone will do it. But yeah.
Yeah, just another thank you. I had a great time presenting with y'all. It was a little struggle, but y'all stuck by me and I appreciate that. And yeah, just another thank you.
And we certainly want to make space for any questions, but Olivia Campbell, I don't know if you wanted to touch on with the larger group in terms of, because I think that's a really good point about that Jasmine just raised as far as like what was brought up in your meeting, and wondering if you're open to commenting more on that just for the larger group to also like hear that perspective, because I definitely think that there are a lot of good points to that, and would love to hear if you have any thoughts to expand on with everyone in the room, because there's several here that are either active on Twitter or have thought about it or are thinking about it. So would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm sorry, I heard the last part of that. Can you repeat the question for me one more time, please?
Yeah, of course. Just wondering if you're open to sharing or expanding on the thoughts that Jasmine shared from the group that you all were in, as far as like the necessary evil that comes with Twitter, social media in general. Because I think that's a really good point, and would love for others to also hear from that if they weren't in your group. But also wanted to give you space if you wanted to touch on that and expand on it if you had any thoughts in addition to the short like one-liner that we got recap from your breakout session.
Yeah, so basically just sometimes social media takes over my life, and it's not usually not a healthy thing, and it, like you said, it can be a place of toxicity and negativity. Um but unfortunately, for a really long time, like Twitter, especially in the beginning, was for all intents and purposes, it was like my base of operations, because I didn't have anybody like, and really I still don't have anybody supporting me in this work, either like practically or emotionally. So I had to try and connect with people, and use my voice, and like um I had to like reach out to this community, and um just to try and elevate a message. And so I if sorry, I'm kind of brain fog tonight. Um but I basically had to become part of this social media community to elevate a message. And the more I was on there, the more I realized, like, between the different platforms, that there are tools for that, and there's a place for that, and there are different means to do that. And each platform kind of has its own vibe and its own, like on Twitter, for, like I was saying in the breakout room, the messages are really short, but like Twitter has the potential to be really, like, it can pack a wallop for as short as the messages are. It's a good way to get a message out there. Whereas Facebook is kind of more like it's good for strategizing and good for content organization, because you can like organize calendars and you can organize files, so you can organize resources, where you can't really do that on Twitter. Um and Instagram is more of a place for like the really, really visual aspect of activism, like pictures and videos and stuff. I hope that makes sense. I am really super brain fogged tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those thoughts, and thank you for being with us tonight. But yes, I think those are all excellent points in terms of the pluses, minuses of each platform, and each one serving a different purpose. But to your point, like Twitter itself as a platform, even though you're limited on how many words, characters you can use for a single tweet post, there's so much power that comes with that. And I mean, if folks still watch the news, I don't know how many people still watch TV on the news, but sometimes on the news, I'll see like on the local news, like they'll have images of tweets that they grab and grab their attention, and they'll like highlight them. And it's like just thinking through how like how much a tweet can travel to get to that point of like the source where they're now noticing it and placing them on the 5 p.m. news, tweet about this person's dog that made the news or whatever the case may be. So yes, just wanted to say thank you for sharing those thoughts, Olivia, and at least your experience with navigating the different platforms. Also wanted to make space for any questions or thoughts that folks had from the information that was presented tonight. I know that one of the things that was covered in tonight's presentation was also organizing the tweet storms. And I know that there are several folks on here that have participated on Twitter, either tweet storms or action calls to action on social media. So also wanted to give space if there's any reflections, thoughts on your personal experience of navigating these platforms and utilizing either Twitter or Instagram or Facebook for advocacy efforts on your end, and where if you have a preference for one platform or the other. We have folks on here that are still adapting and figuring out which platforms they want to stick to for certain causes, or whatever calls to action they want to do, whatever goal they want to reach. So just wanted to open up the floor for that. And Crash, I see your hand is raised, so I'll give you space to share any thoughts that you have.
I'm not an expert. I mean, I guess I could be considered an Instagram expert, but like I'm really not one. I just, have had an account for a long time. But when it comes to social media, one thing I'll say about what platforms leverage what, how toxic all of them are, like there's a lot to be said about it. So Twitter has gotten better. I think they cleaned up their act. Like I had it when it was in beta. I used to get like thousands of death threats a day, and like none of these were legitimate, but who cares, right? And so that I deleted that account. I made a new one. I barely use Twitter now because I don't fully understand how their algorithm and whatnot work anymore. With Instagram, it's very superficial and it's more targeted towards like millennials and like, Gen Z, but more older Gen Z. And then TikTok is beyond my imagination. It's foreign to me. I need lessons on it. And that's like more the Gen Z like thing. And I'm getting old now. So because I can't deal with that and I couldn't deal with Snapchat. That's when you're getting old, is when you go over 2. So, like that happened. And yeah, like, so for me, like Instagram's a place though, where people don't expect for someone to just come out and like, excuse my language, talk shit. And I love to do that on Instagram. It's like a place where you see a lot of self-helping comments and I just talk shit. I just say what it is. And like, that's not what people want to see on Instagram. I got people meeting my stories. I get shadow banned. I get called out for hate speech against white cis men. That's not even a fucking thing. Like I'm a white dude. So, like, I mean, you can't even use hate speech against white people. There's no definition that fits that criteria. Zuckerberg wilding for that. So I think leveraging Instagram is important because they don't know what to do if you can confuse the algorithm. And that's important. It's like, if you're just an abolitionist on your bio, they're gonna put you in that funnel. They definitely have me in that funnel, but like because I'm a musician as well, it will break and confuse the algorithm a little bit. And like that happens if you do writing or whatnot. So anytime I have an article published, even though I don't write professionally a lot, that will mess with the algorithm. And I'll get kind of a few new followers, a few new ones. And then LinkedIn's always the most interesting place, in my opinion, to do activism, because you really don't know who supports what you're going to say. And like sometimes it will be like a big donor. Sometimes it will just be like the Klan coming at you from the vice president of Pepsi. Like you never know, you know what I mean? So I always think that's interesting to leverage if you're not willing about risking, the UCLA alumni thing, like when you are making your points on LinkedIn. But yeah, I think it's gotten a lot more liberal now. But that's my view of it. Just stay away from Discord because, we don't organize there. The alt-right does. So, yeah, mad love.
Thanks so much for Crash, for sharing that. Andrea, I see your hands up, so I also wanted to give you space.
Thanks, Daisy. Yes, my name is Andrea. I use she, her pronouns, and I definitely do also agree with Crash. If you know people and they can just be people that are on social media, influencers, or people that just have a lot of people following them, if they have a big platform, it's always very helpful if they can just reshare an action, or if it's a flyer, or maybe they have other people they're connected to so that are looking at their stories. Maybe that may not be like the main source of where you're going to plug in at, but definitely very helpful in getting the exposure. I think being very specific and intentional is part of your action, depending what that may look like. If it's something that's happening on Instagram versus something that's happening on Twitter. What I will really highlight and uplift on Twitter, though, however, is where I feel that you can make better progress when you're trying to really get a point across, and you're trying to move and you're mobilizing whatever the action may be, whatever the call was, because your reach is so great and people from other states, countries are looking at specific hashtags, maybe not the same as they would look at things on Instagram. It could be even the very same hashtag that you're using, but you're getting the notice on Twitter. And so people do follow hashtags. It might be like abolition, let's say, for example, and there may be so many people that are following just that hashtag alone. So your I guess the chances that you may appear on their feed are a lot greater when you're including some of those hashtags. And if you don't have a lot of followers on Twitter, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you have one follower. Just the point that you're there in the Twitter space and you're moving something in the atmosphere, it counts. So every hashtag is very important. The followers are not. And when you're participating in an action, that is very helpful for the action itself to boost the hashtags and the counts. So you would like to be trending. I know when we have had really successful Twitter storms, we've been trending all across the platform, and then also in California and other states where we are looking to be trending at. So that could just help with you sharing. You don't even have to post. If you're just resharing and you're adding the hashtag and you have 0 followers, absolutely helps. If you can do that as much as possible within the duration of the Twitter storm, it's so much helpful. And if other people can just copy what you're doing, I think that helps for people that are not really plugged in on Twitter. Just share it. And if you can add those hashtags, that would be wonderful.
Thanks so much, Andrea, for sharing those thoughts. And yeah, I mean, and I think that was something that we went over earlier. Is like, you can like it by just hitting the heart, or you can retweet it by just clicking on the arrows that are in the box. And that really does help whatever cause it is that post is addressing, whether it's raising awareness about something, or it's a specific call to action that's calling out a legislator to support, oppose, or take a stance on or position on an issue or a bill. So there really is a lot of power in retweeting, reposting, and even on Instagram and Facebook doing the same and resharing those messages on your platform, because that is exposing the message, the content, the action, whatever it is, to a new audience. That, you know, maybe there might be someone in that new audience that says, hey, let me check this out. Hence, you know, tonight's exercise. So I wanted to also make space in case there's any other questions that folks had before we wrap up for tonight. Sounds like everybody's either going to be a Twitter expert after tonight's presentation or go on and make their own account. So hopefully we see you in the Twitter universe if that's something that you are looking to explore. But I don't see any questions. We'll end a little early, but just wanted to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is going to be edited and then uploaded on our YouTube channel. The slide deck will also be shared out to all the registrants, along with the recording of the link once that is uploaded. And also just wanted to uplift some upcoming events happening. So Initiate Justice usually does our monthly member meetings on the first Wednesday of the month. So that would be tomorrow, June 1st. However, there was a change to this upcoming month's meeting. And this is like a one-time only thing where we decided to move our meeting over to next week. So no meeting tomorrow. Our meeting will be taking place next Wednesday, June 8th at 6:30. And we're actually going to be focusing the meeting on election reflections, given that this is taking place the day after the primary election. So for anybody that wants to join us at that meeting, you can RSVP at the link that I just dropped in the chat, which is tinyurl.com. And then there's a slash followed by capital I, capital J, capital M, and then lowercase ONTHLY. So it's IJ monthly with IJ and then M capitalized. So that again is next Wednesday, June 8th at 6:30. So no member meeting tomorrow. Enjoy your Wednesday night off. Then there is an Inside Organizing Committee meeting taking place this Thursday, June 2nd at 5:30. So for anybody that's interested in joining that meeting, you can register for that meeting at tinyurl.com/capital I, capital J, capital I, capital O, and then lowercase monthly. So IJIO monthly. So that's happening Thursday at 5:30. And then lastly, there is a mindfulness circle that is happening on Monday, June 6th at 6 o'clock for people who experienced incarceration. So if you are formerly incarcerated, we invite you to join that space at tinyurl.com/we heal for us, with the capital W for we, capital H for heal, capital F for, and then a capital U for us. All the other letters are lowercase, but that is also in the chat for anybody that would like to join that. And aside from that, thank you to our student interns for working hard on this presentation, engaging with folks to get feedback, and making sure we had content to share with you all. We hope that this was beneficial to folks that joined us tonight. And aside from that, have a good rest of your night, and we will see you hopefully at our meeting next week. Bye, everybody.